The spiral in Little Nightmares 3 is anything but straightforward. This twisting thread of locations, each wildly different, somehow connects endlessly, looping in on itself like a nightmare that refuses to end. This corner of the nowhere makes every step feel like a descent, deeper and deeper into a dream you'll never wake up from. Each place is a half-remembered memory, decayed, distorted, and crawling with things best left unseen. For two small children, low and alone, escape is the dream. But dreams turn fast in the spiral, and some nightmares never let go. The places in Little Nightmares don't just set the stage, they dictate the tone, challenge our survival, and deepen the mysteries of the nowhere itself. Hey, hi, how you doing? I am doing great, thanks for asking. I am PlanetDrewpiter, and today we are diving deep into everything we know about the spiral. This video focuses exclusively on Little Nightmares 3, dissecting the visual style, secrets, and lore, and proving that this coil of strange places isn't just our imagination. Let's piece together the history of the spiral and see how it fits into the greater nowhere. A delusion-saturated realm where reality warps in frightening ways and childhood nightmares come to life. Have you ever had a dream where you seamlessly move from one place to another? A house, then a forest, with no sense of time passing between. That's how I think of the spiral. The spiral is the setting of Little Nightmares 3. Just as the nowhere contains the spiral itself holds its own worlds, like a black hole twisting distant lands and realities into one chaotic, impossible blend. There may be more than we've seen so far, but the Necropolis, the Candy Factory, the Carnivale, and the Institute are the four we know for sure, all pulled into this vortex together. While they differ wildly in ecosystem and atmosphere, they exist surprisingly close to one another, and we'll get into that theory later. In past Little Nightmares games, each story mirrored the nature of its location, but in Low and Alone's tale, we see many different worlds, and for the first time, a clear goal set by the protagonists themselves. This is also the first game where we can't quite pin down when it happens in the larger timeline. The only real hint comes from the Sounds of Nightmares podcast when Otto gets excited over a yellow raincoat, meaning Little Nightmares 3 takes place after that story. But how long after? Did Otto's experiments occur before Little Nightmares 2, or even before Very Little Nightmares? Some fans even believe all these events happen simultaneously, that time simply doesn't work in the nowhere. After all, clocks are constantly shown spinning out of control. So, this possibly timeless spiral is composed of at least 4 known regions: the Necropolis, the Factory, the Carnivale, and the Institute. Right at the beginning of the game, we get that quintessential zoom Little Nightmares is known for. This time, into an ornate mirror. A carved gem sits at its top, shaped like a swirl. Distorted noises echo through the dark, maybe children playing. As the image slowly comes into focus, we see a dim room, a single window letting in muted daylight, tree branches just barely peeking through the frame. The view sharpens as if seen through rippling water, and then, just as clarity hits, it's snatched away. A fast cut to Low waking up as if from a bad dream, just like Mono and Six before him. Or after. Low and Alone are introduced here. For anyone going in blind, this is moments after they've traveled through the shattered mirror behind them. As the camera pans out, we notice more details. Piles of suitcases, some toppled open, contents scattered around. This was once some form of public transportation. And if you look closely at the poster hanging behind the bench, it's the very same one Six finds in the Pale City in Little Nightmares 2. A short trek later, it's revealed that this vessel is actually a tender, a small boat used to ferry people and supplies to a larger vessel when it can't dock, possibly the very same kind of ship Six saw feeding the mall with guests. But this dinghy is no longer at sea. Instead, we find ourselves stranded in the middle of a vast desert during a raging sandstorm. This opening sets the tone. The nowhere contains wildly different ecosystems, maybe even more varied than the real world, the counties, perhaps. So luggage, packages, and even the bodies of guests litter the path. And at the end of the journey, a massive stone wall. I've got a few theories about that wall. It could simply serve as a barrier against the brutal sandstorms the Necropolis endures, protecting what remains of the city. Or maybe, in true Attack on Titan fashion, it was built to keep the monster baby out. Either way, we climb a rickety ladder at the opening near the top, and that's where the first hints of an old society emerge. A hanging net trap, one raven caught inside, another perched on top. Maybe the Dwellers once used these traps to catch food. The Dwellers, the stone people frozen in time across the city, were all turned by the monster baby's gaze. Their society clearly had some kind of structure. Inside the room we enter, it looks like a hunter's quarters. Tools, boxes of guts, more nets, but outside, the tone shifts. A giant pacifier, presumably belonging to the monster baby, and nearby, a raven pecks at a Dweller's head. The Dwellers seem to be petrified only on the surface, their organs still soft inside, which explains why the ravens feast on them. I believe that when you're turned to stone here, you don't die. You remain trapped, aware, frozen forever. Throughout the necropolis, we see strange bags hanging in the background, possibly bodies hung upside down. Why? Maybe offerings, or maybe remnants of a ritual we no longer understand. Soon we find a flour mill, except it's not milling grain. The windmill turns a weighted stone, grinding bird bones into fine dust. There's a lot of it, and for a reason. As we move through the mill, bone dust slowly gives way to piles of feathers. The Dwellers clearly made use of every part of the ravens they caught, even saving their feathers, packing them into countless hanging bags. It feels like a fragile ecosystem shattered when the monster baby arrived. And then, we finally meet that monster baby. I'll have a dedicated video about all the monsters and residents of the nowhere soon, but for now, it's a giant, doll-like baby with a mechanical gaze that petrifies anyone who meets its eyes. The Dwellers used raven feathers for many things, the tool we personally use being feather umbrellas, perfect for catching wind tunnels and gliding through the ruins. Were they built with the same intent by the Dwellers? Maybe. They're large for children, but in the nowhere, scale rarely makes sense. As we press through the ruins and destruction, the imagery becomes even darker. Insect eggs laid inside petrified Dwellers, from the beetles that crawled down the necropolis. Thankfully, they stay there. While exploring underground, we see even more hanging body bags. Maybe this is a crypt or a crematorium, but what decides who's buried and who's displayed? At this point, we've been chased relentlessly by the monster baby, witnessing scenes of Dwellers frozen mid-motion. No one was safe here. And then, a haunting sight. Dwellers kneeling in a circle around one central figure, all of them frozen mid-prayer, the ground marked with an eye drawn in bird bone dust. Perhaps they believed a sacrifice would appease the baby, but it was in vain. The gaze found them all. Eventually, the monster baby captures our protagonists, but they manage to escape. Throughout the game, Lo and Alone sometimes wake up inside of a padded cell, clearly not the necropolis. It's possibly the Institute, where Otto hypnotizes children through dreams, trying to reach the nowhere himself. Maybe these flashes are reality bleeding through. And perhaps that's exactly what the spiral is. Children thrown into these various corners of the nowhere for short stints. Every child in Little Nightmares seems unique, special in some way. Maybe the nowhere knows that and traps them in the places they're least likely to escape. Lo wakes up surrounded by crayons and drawings. Someone's coming to the door and, in a panic, he hides under the bed. I'm assuming that's Otto. The scene fades and we're suddenly back in the necropolis, under rubble, now at night. It looks like we've crash landed in some kind of classroom maybe. Toys scattered everywhere. Conveniently, the monster baby is playing just outside. We sneak past and find a bell tower. A fascinating room with one kneeling figure, a rope tied around his neck, connected to the clapper of a giant bell. Historically, this mirrors an old punishment called gibbeting, where criminals' bodies were displayed publicly to deter others. I think that's what's happening here, only the prisoner's body still rings the bell. Outside, we continue to see ravens hung upside down now. Maybe a ritual for the morning, maybe companionship, but perhaps the ravens and dwellers coexisted, and now the ravens linger, loyal to their fallen friends. That would explain what happens next. The ravens band together and attack the monster baby, driving it off. Moments later, we finally find what we've been looking for, another mirror, intact, glowing with that greenish hue. On the other side, the factory, waiting in all of its sticky glory. Right away, the name says it all. The factory is a candy factory, though calling it that almost feels wrong. We arrive in what looks like a break room, a cot on the floor, the mirror behind us, a few scattered cans. There's even a rat caught in a trap. The perfect, grim welcome. The only way forward is through the vents, and on the other side, a hauntingly familiar sight. Another hanging man. He's larger than the ones we've seen before, maybe a janitor or worker caught in some mechanical accident. This world runs on automation. Like WALL-E gone wrong, the workers here seem to move along tracks and never touch the ground. Maybe this man fell victim to the system he helped maintain. As we crawl through broken pipes and strange, sticky goo pooling on the floor, the day begins for the workers. We see them zipping across chasms on rails off to their posts. Also, everything is bathed in this sickly green hue, like the air itself is nauseous. And the deeper we go, the worse it gets. Soon we meet the overseer of this nightmare, the supervisor, glimpsed briefly through a window as she glides by, mechanically. Despite the chaos, the factory runs with a kind of twisted organization. We pass room after room of filing cabinets and paperwork, suggesting someone, maybe just her, tries to keep it all in order. She seems exhausted, frantic, trying to do everything herself, and honestly, it's a good thing she's built with wheels. There's even an Employee of the Month wall. Some photos are torn down, others repeated, and the first, of course, is the supervisor herself. The rest, hollowed-eyed workers who all kind of look identical. Security cameras begin to appear, and they don't trigger alarms, but they do follow us, watching, recording. We slip past one and crawl through a crack in the wall, finding a small room filled with discarded portraits. Maybe old employees of the month, taken down when they were no longer useful. And steam bursts from pipes everywhere. It's like they're patching with chewing gum. They're constantly breaking and blasting in the faces of the residents. And everything here, although is running with some kind of organization, it feels ready to collapse. We drop from a door onto a rusted pipe, which instantly snaps, sending us tumbling into a pile of candy? Except this candy is rotten, half melted and tossed in heaps. Lollipops, jawbreakers, pies, all stale. Worse yet, the jawbreakers have teeth embedded in them. And that's just our first clue that something's terribly wrong here. Soon we encounter the candy weevils, scuttling insect-like pests that swarm toward the sugary mush. They're only deterred by light, but the infestation runs deep. That purple mush they feed on, it's the base of every candy produced here. Machines churn it endlessly, conveyor belts lined with workers picking out debris, recycling old, discarded candy into new, quote-unquote, product. Everything is reused. Everything. We pass a sleeping worker slumped in front of a TV showing live security feeds and enter a vast storeroom filled to the ceiling with boxed candy. Millions of pieces, all branded with Nowhere's iconic eye symbol. The deeper we go, the worse it gets. Dead workers hang from nets, bodies tossed down shafts, and a walk-in freezer filled with food, if you can call it that. Maybe those missing employees of the month were added to the candy mix too. In a nearby hallway, we spot a poster advertising the Carnivale, foreshadowing the next destination and hinting that this factory supplies its sweets there. Past the mailroom, we discover how deliveries are made. Small hot air balloons carrying crates into the distance. The same kind of balloon the girl in the yellow raincoat crashes into the nest during Little Nightmares with. We even hear seagulls, suggesting we are close to the sea. Back inside, we stumble into the video security room. Rows of TVs displaying live factory feeds. One screen even shows the same static transmission seen in Little Nightmares 2. Maybe the signal reaches further than just the Pale City. Turning off the monitors immediately alerts the supervisor. She panics, twisting knobs and pressing buttons to no avail before her anxiety boils over into rage. Moments later, she's hunting us, her mechanical body shifting into full spider mode. We run through storage rooms packed with crates and candy carts until we reach a chamber with a massive industrial press. It's unclear what it's meant for, maybe candy molds, packaging, but we use it to crush the supervisor once and for all. Before escaping, we find one more thing. The supervisor's personal workshop, the place where she likely built her mechanical lower half. It's kind of haunting to realize it'll never be used again. Finally, buried among the shelves, another mirror awaits. Tall, ornate, topped with that same swirling emblem as before, we step through it and emerge somewhere new. We're tossed into a room overflowing with bags of wool, the air thick with floating fibers. No clues yet about where we've landed though. But it doesn't take long to spot a familiar sight. The gnomes. Leaving the room, we pass odd displays, dioramas, taxidermy gnomes, even bear traps. It's an eerie assortment of strange artifacts. A brief moment of peace comes when we find a coal-burning engine with a gnome companion beside it, before things take another dark turn. We ascend by elevator into a dusty storage room packed with crates of unsettling curiosities, bottled organs, freakish doll hybrids, even bathtubs full of meat hanging from hooks. The entire space feels like a private museum of horrors. We're locked in by mechanical gates requiring a multi-button code to open. Whoever runs this place takes security seriously. Our first hint of where we are comes when we see a massive resident lying dead, having fallen through rotten floorboards. Carnival flags hang from the wreckage above. Then it clicks. Popcorn machines filled with wriggling grubs, gumball machines packed with doll heads, claw machines clutching dismembered limbs. This is no ordinary carnival. And in the next room, we see a familiar symbol. Crates from the factory, confirming the candy connection. Outside, the air is heavy with rain and wind. Only later do we realize this carnival is floating, a flying circus drifting through the storm. The Nowhere's obsession with steam power is everywhere here. Engines churning, pipes groaning, fire flickering beneath the floor. But the entire structure feels unstable. At one point, we cross a teetering wagon barely balanced on a plank. It collapses just as we escape, and in the distance, faint music begins to play. Through the rain and radio static, a shadow sits listening. The kin. When the lights flick on, his silhouette is unmistakable. He turns off the radio just as the same haunting tune that played on Roger's TV in Little Nightmares fades away. We move deeper, passing through the Carnivale's back corridors, disorganized, cluttered, chaotic. But among the junk, we find something extraordinary. A map of the nowhere, showing the Carnivale's travel route. Next to it stands a suit on a mannequin, a purple suit. Now, fans of the Sounds of Nightmares podcast will recognize this instantly. This is the man in the purple suit, the performer, or simply, Kin. His circus traps children, forcing them to perform endlessly while he and his smaller counterpart, Minikin, run the show. From here, the atmosphere changes. Dummy parts and puppets appear everywhere, and soon they start to move. After a frantic fight through a storage room full of these puppets, we drop beneath the floorboards and finally see the carnival's public face. Tents, games, food stalls, and the massive crowd known as the Herd. The Herd are gross and hungry residents of the nowhere stripped of reason. They line up for food, play games, and laugh without emotion. And they look for the nowhere's version of fun. Gluttony and chaos disguised as joy. Inside what looks like a gift shop, puppets run the games, shouting at customers. Outside, the rain pours, but the Carnivale never stops. Up above, we reach the large mechanical cutout of Kin and Minikin, waving at the crowd, a large haunting parody of a welcome sign. Nearby stands a carousel eerily similar to the one mentioned in the Lonely Ones novel, where Mim, Feast, and Ruse first wake up in the nowhere. And the candy from the factory is everywhere. The Herd gorge on it like the guests did in the mall. Their hunger also feels endless, almost ritualistic. One scene shows residents bobbing for jawbreakers until they drowned, their corpses ignored by the others. Another depicts human piñatas, bodies hanging upside down, beaten for the sticky candy coating them. Now, deeper inside, we find an indoor game, a dunk tank surrounded by chairs for an audience. But the contestant is a resident bound in heavy metal chains. When he's dropped into the water, the lid slams shut, and we move on. It's also worth saying that the pool lid also bears an eye, a quiet reminder that everything here is being watched by this nowhere entity. Outside again, the Herd whirl endlessly on that swing ride in the background as the storm rages. It's pretty funny if you think about it. And beneath them lies Puppet Alley, where deactivated puppets sit in heaps, lifeless from either their performances or just gorging on candy themselves. In the Lonely Ones, Mim was turned into a puppet by the performer, moving in sync with his every motion. These puppets, then, are likely children who've fully become residents of the nowhere because of that. We sneak through the Carnivale's abandoned areas until we reach a mailroom piled high with unopened letters. Fan mail, maybe? The performer has admirers, even in this nightmare. One of the most chilling moments comes when Lo and Alone ride a roller coaster filled with tied-up bags, bodies repurposed as cargo. It's transportation, sure, but it's also disposal. Interestingly, The Lonely Ones describes a similar ride that dumps its passengers mid-loop, so it's possible there are multiple coasters, all connected through the same macabre network. After the ride, Lo discovers that his hand-drawn maps, his sense of direction, were wrong. The mirror he thought would save them is already shattered. The same spiral symbol sits atop it, but there's no escape here. Defeated, he nearly gives up, but Alone takes the map and reassures him. They pass a carousel and reach a door marked with a star, Kin and Minikin's dressing room. It's large, cluttered, and filled with decaying bodies. The reason becomes clear. Like the factory, the Carnivale reuses everything. Minikin, a smaller entity or perhaps a pet, feeds on flesh, living or dead. The room is a gruesome mix of luxury and rot. Meat saws, bones, and old meals fill the kitchen, and it's just chaos. When we fall through a chute, we land in a pool of dentures. Given how much candy the Herd consumes, maybe they lost their teeth long ago. But why keep them? Maybe to sell. Even here, nothing goes to waste. Further in, we're chased into a chamber packed with small, box-like cells, the same kind we've seen used to hold children throughout the whole series. Inside one, we find a trapped kid. Some fans think this is Rusty from The Sounds of Nightmares, but Rusty was described as a teenager, and this child is much, much younger, not a performer, just another prisoner. Later, we see him attempting to juggle before a silent audience and failing miserably. It's kind of awkward. Ken and Minikin give chase through hallways lined with shoes, dead bodies, and collapsed showrooms. Eventually, we reach a hot air balloon, confirming the connection between the Carnivale and the factory. Candy goes one way, bodies go the other. As Lo and Alone lift off, smaller balloons drift by carrying their own writhing sacks of bodies, but then lightning strikes mid-flight, of course, sending them down crashing right into their final destination. When the freefall begins, we cut once again to that same small room, the one Lo always wakes up in. He's back in reality, at least for a moment. He immediately reaches for his drawings. Spread out before him are sketches of everything we've actually seen so far: the Necropolis, the Carnivale, even the supervisor in her spider form. He's seen all of this before, not just in dreams, but in his imagination. Like his mind is projecting pieces of the nowhere onto the walls of his world. The footsteps come again. Panicking, Lo tosses his drawings into a chute and hides under the bed until the coast is clear. And when he goes back to get them, something else comes out of the chute. A small doll version of Alone. And this is the first time we see evidence that Alone may not be real, that she's an imaginary friend. We fade back into the nowhere, and this time to a rainy beach where jungle vines creep up the walls of a hospital-like structure. The air feels heavier here, the world quieter. This is the Institute, the same one mentioned throughout The Sounds of Nightmares. It's Otto's domain, the place where he worked with Noon and where he eventually lost himself trying to reach the nowhere. As we move through playgrounds, toy rooms, and empty halls, children's echoes linger everywhere. Tangibly, laughter, cries, the faint hum of machinery. This place feels like a memory, one shaped by Lo's mind. And every so often the building trembles with small earthquakes, which seems harmless until we realize they happen every time we interact with something significant. The nowhere is reacting to us. Eventually, we encounter a massive, sinewy leg sliding through the halls, curling back into the darkness. Whenever we strike a gong nearby, the sound hurts it. And this institute is a maze, it turns out. Part jungle, part asylum, part laboratory. One room in particular stands out. A dim TV room filled with static, eerily reminiscent of Mono's world. Whether it's a coincidence or a connection, it's hard to say, but it fits. As we press on, we eventually find Lo's cell, the one from his waking world, mirrored here in the nowhere. Inside, the same doll version of Alone radiates this strange energy. Certain objects in the nowhere seem to hold immense power. Tokens tied to emotion or memory. This one allows Lo to see the world as it used to be, as he remembers it from the real world. One of the rooms revealed through its power is a recording room, filled to the top with reels and tape machines. It feels like a physical manifestation of Otto's sessions from The Sounds of Nightmares. In the podcast, Otto records his therapy sessions with children, particularly Noon, and in Little Nightmares 3, we walk through those very memories, seeing what his obsession with dreams created. As we approach Otto's office, in fact, the ground shakes harder, and a giant hand bursts through the wall, a huge limb with a single eye in its palm. It searches blindly, grasping, tearing through walls in pursuit of Lo and Alone. After surviving waves of mold and twisted nurses, we reach something remarkable. Noon's room. Everything from the podcast is here. Her flower bouquet, her brain scans, even candy wrappers from the candy Otto used to strengthen her dreams. Nearby in the kitchen area, the nurses wander, silent and distorted, and beyond them, Otto's office awaits. The details are unmistakable here too. The candy jar, the hypnosis machine, the photo Noon commented on in her final session. And then we see him. Otto himself. Overgrown, fused into the Institute's walls, body warped and stretched, a man who literally became part of his creation. Some fans debate whether this is Otto or his predecessor, but given all the evidence, it's clearly him. Otto made it to the nowhere, searching for Cece. But that part of his journey didn't end well, it seems. What's striking here is how the real-world Institute and the nowhere version mirror one another, like two halves of the same nightmare. Children's shadows can be found playing in the halls, and we begin to suspect that Lo was one of Otto's patients, patient number 1331. It's possible that Lo is Ethan, the boy that wanders into Otto's office in the final episode of The Sounds of Nightmares, Season 1. After Noon disappeared, Otto began his new experiment. A large reason why kids are sent to the Institute in the counties is that adults seem to notice that the kids will sometimes disappear out of thin air when they're asleep. So, when Otto enters the cell in the waking world and sees the bed empty, he doesn't search, because he figures Lo isn't gone, he's simply in the nowhere. He'll come back. After a tense chase through the collapsing Institute, echoing the gongs, the eyes, the screams, we reach the final cliffside, and it gives us a little PTSD. Once the two wake up in the middle of the destruction, there in the distance stands the mirror from the beginning, glowing faintly, waiting. We limp toward it past Otto's unmoving limbs and body parts, and we reach out. Alone hesitates this time. The mirrors have started to frighten her, maybe because they're gateways Lo created through his imagination, maybe because she can feel herself fading the closer they get to freedom or the real world. Lo's imagination gave him these mirrors. It gave him a way to escape the nowhere, and it gave him alone. But without a dreamer to imagine her, she can't exist. When he steps through the mirror, she's spit back out, and she disappears. A true sacrifice of friendship. There isn't a hidden ending, just a quiet one. Lo awakens in the room reflected in the mirror. It's an old house, vines crawling through the window, sunlight breaking through the cracks. Maybe it's the counties. Maybe it's freedom. Lo kneels, trying to piece together the fragments of that broken mirror. Will Lo choose to go back into the spiral? Maybe. After all, he's walked that road before. The spiral isn't just a series of places twisted together. It's a test, a reflection of the children who wander into it, bending itself around their fears, their memories, their regrets. It tempts them with comfort. It breaks them with hope. And when it's done, it asks the hardest question of all. Do you still want to wake up? Every child in the nowhere has faced it in their own way. For some, it's escape. For others, it's home. The spiral is the nowhere's heartbeat, a place where dreams and reality blur so completely that even the truth starts to feel unreal. And for Lo, maybe it wasn't about escaping the nightmare at all. Maybe it was about learning to let go of the dream. Because without the dreamer, there can be no alone. The spiral is the nowhere you can wake up from. But only if you want to. So what do you think? Can Lo find his way back to alone? Would he even want to, knowing what it costs? And if he's truly awake now, is he any safer than before? Let me know what you think down below. I love reading your theories. And if you enjoyed unraveling this with me, please hit like, subscribe, and share this with another Little Nightmares fan. It really helps a lot. Until next time,
Peace.